Welcome to another episode of Freedom with Kristie. Today I have Keala Kanae, my current mentor, and he's going to dive into exactly how he rewired his mindset to create over $100 million. But first, let me give you a little bit of context as to how we actually met. So now, if we rewind 9 years ago, right? 9 years ago, I was pregnant with my first child. We had just been evicted from our apartment, my husband and I, and we were broke. We didn't know how we were putting food on the table every day. And we're in a place of our life where we were like, okay, we have this baby on the way. We're not going to bring up our children in this type of environment, right? Where we're just kind of living day by day. So we knew we had to do something. And so we started our current business. And at the time, we were just like literally a couple of days into it. We're on a call with some of our mentors from Canada. And they were talking about this event that was going to be happening a week from that call in Vancouver. My husband and I got off that call and we were like, we have to be there. But the problem was we had no money. We had no resources. We didn't know how we were going to make that happen. And we were like, okay, well, how on earth are we going to get to the other side of the world? Like, we're going to come up with flights. We're going to come up with thousands of dollars. We're going to come up with like the event tickets, all the things. And there was probably like minus in our account at the time. So what we did, instead of how we always showed up previously, which was we can't do it or no, it's not possible, we're like, what if we could do it? What if we actually got resourceful? What if we actually took what was impossible and made it possible? And so we kind of treated it like a game, right? Like I kind of think like life's a game, right? It's like we kind of played it like it was this game of like, well, how many ways are there that we could actually come up with this money? So we started to think differently to how we thought before. And rather than be like, shut it down and be like, oh no, it's not possible next time, we're like, all right, let's get out a whiteboard. And we wrote out all the different ways we could actually make this happen. So this crazy week of like selling things and this happening and that happening, the morning of the flight to Vancouver, we are driving to the airport without a plane ticket. I don't know anyone who's done that ever in my life, right? So we're driving and I look over at my husband and I was like, this is actually batshit crazy. Like, what are we actually doing? We need to turn around and forget about this whole thing. He's like, babe, trust. We got this. We've come this far. Like, we've come this far. Let's just take the next step. Right? How does that then like relate to life, right? Of like, we come this far, but then are we actually taking the final step? So anyway, an hour and a half before the flight was leaving, we got our ticket. We get to the airport. I'm pregnant. Like, we've just been in this crazy week of our life. And they're like, oh, you're not on the manifest. We're like, no, we are. Like, trust us. We've got our tickets. So they're like, okay, but the check-in's closed. And we're like, you're letting us on that flight. Then they're like, well, where's your visa? And I didn't know we needed a visa. I'm like, I just need to get to Canada. I need to get to this event. I don't have a visa. So anyway, they like take us to Flight Centre. They like escorted us through the airport. We literally have this guy escorting us. We're running. I'm like fully pregnant, like running through the airport. We get to the plane. We get on and the plane doors just close behind us. And we were like, I can't believe we just made that happen. We sit down and we look at each other and we're like, even if we get nothing out of this event, our lives have completely changed because we made the impossible possible and because we actually got resourceful for once in our life. So we'd already had this big shift. But we get to Vancouver, we got off the plane, we hadn't had any sleep, we got off the plane, we went straight to the event and we were in the event for like 4 days. And I remember distinctly Keala being a speaker there. So I remember this guy, he's like, gets up on stage, he's got this really cool hat and he's like strutting across the stage. And we both just like really loved everything that he shared. So that was the first time I met him. And Keala and I were just talking before about, I was like, you remember that dinner that we had after that event where you guys like took us out for dinner? There was like 100 of us. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, that was like really normal by that point, of the journey. And I was like, that changed my life in so many ways. So the mentors that were running this event, including Keala, they took us out to this dinner and it came to like $4,000 Canadian. And I remember seeing the receipt and I was like, $4,000 Canadian? Like, wow. Like, it literally changed my life because I was like, I can't wait to do this. Like, I'm so excited that like maybe that's possible for me to take like 100 people out to dinner and pay for it. So we got home from that event that Keala spoke at, and we got to hang around all of these guys that were doing like, like Keala was doing like millions of dollars a month in his business. Like we got to be around these types of entrepreneurs, right? It's so far from our reality. And we got home, we implemented 5 things from that event, and we created $120,000 cash in 90 days. We created a 6-figure month, and then we did $1 million in 11 months from being in that proximity, right? From being around people that were thinking way bigger than what we were thinking, and that thought different. They had different skill set, they had different mindset. And 6 months after that, we took, can't remember the exact amount of people, maybe 60 or 70. We took 60 or 70 people out to dinner to celebrate their success that were in our community, and it came to $4,000 Australian. And I was like, wow, life can change so fast. Right? Like it was such a big shift for me, like to go from receiving that and also feeling a bit like uncomfortable receiving. I'm like, you guys are going to like pay for our dinner and all of this. Thank God they did, because we didn't have any money to be out at dinner. To then being able to do that like 6 months later. And this is why it's so important. Like I always surround myself with people that are further along than where I am. Like I always surround myself with people that are thinking bigger and, incredible mentors, because I'm like, I want to think bigger. Like there's another step that's available, another level that's available for me, right, to unlock. So that was the first time we met. And then last year I'm in San Diego and I'm hanging out with some of my friends. We're catching up, we're masterminding, and, we're talking about business. We're like, what's working for you? What's working for me? And both of them said, you got to get your whole community to do Keala's work, to do Genesis. And I was like, Genesis? Like, what is that? And they were like, they're trying to explain it to me. And I was like, I trust them, right? I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's link me with Keala. So we got reconnected after 9 years. We jumped on a call and, we had a great chat about, his work and all the incredible things that have been happening. And I was like, all right, well, before my community does it, like I trust the guys who have introduced us, but like before they do it, I want to do it myself. So I thought I was just going to do it for my community. I was like, well, I'll do it so that, I can make sure, tick the boxes and just make sure it's all good. It's legit, it's good, all the things. So I go in with that thinking, I'm here for the community. 2 days before Genesis, my marriage was massively on the line to the point where I didn't think we were going to make it. And I was like, all right, I can't make this decision before Genesis, because, this could be the thing that really unlocks what I really require in order to make this work. And so I go in to Genesis, 3 days, personal development program online. And I was like, okay, I'm not here for my community. I'm here for me. And I think I cried for more in that 3 days than I have in 5 or 10 years. And so many shifts have happened in my life afterwards. Like my marriage is the best it's actually ever been. I had a breakup with a best friend of mine 3 years ago. She reached out to me afterwards. We've apologized to each other. We've both taken responsibility, and now we're meeting in a month. And I never thought that was going to happen. I had been running this story of my life that then affected all my external results in my life, which was I'm not safe and men are useless. So my external environment kept showing me literally on repeat, validating those two things. So all I could see when it came to the men around me were like, oh, he's useless and he's useless and he's useless. And I felt unsafe all the time in my nervous system, even though I've done so much work when it comes to nervous system healing, coaches, different programs. Mm-hmm. So this work that Keala's about to go into and speak about has profoundly shifted my life. And as a result of that, I made a decision to come to his leadership program that is in Texas, where they have guns. I was in a restaurant with him yesterday, and then today he's like, did you see the guy behind you that had a gun? And I was like, what? No, this does not happen in Australia. Don't worry, there's no guns at the leadership event, okay? No one's shooting anyone. It's all good. But anyway, that's what happens in Texas.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah, just to clear that up. So I came to Texas. You know, it wasn't convenient to be here. I have 3 children. It's not convenient just to leave them for it's only a week here, but like the travel and all the things, it's 2 weeks of my life, right? You know, there's flights, there's, you know, the event, all the things. But again, I'm here and I'm like doing this next piece of the work and I'm like, far out. Like I came here with the same attitude, like, oh, I'm just gonna go for the community to see if like I would recommend that next course. And then I'm like, this is not about the community. Like this is about me. And I have had the most incredibly insane shifts since I have been here. So what I wanted to do while I was here in Texas at Keala's ranch is I wanted him to share, because I've been talking about this on my stories. Like we have 400 people in our community currently going through his program, but I have been sharing about this on my new Instagram on my stories, and people are like, oh, well, what is this work? You know, because I built a brand and people trust me, and so they trust what I recommend. And I'm like, oh, it's neuroscience. And they're like, what's neuroscience? And so I'm like, I'm trying to explain it via like voicemails in my Instagram. And I'm like, Keala, can I just interview you so you can explain it? So let's start with, first of all, hi and welcome to my podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
That's in your studio.
Yeah.
So we actually just recorded this, by the way, and it was 50 minutes and then the power went out. So here we are again.
This is take 2.
Take two. I'm just so grateful for your work and to be here. And like, it honestly has profoundly changed my life. And when I am someone who's done something that shifts my life in such a way, I'm kind of like, let's just sing it from the rooftops and get everyone to do it, because, you know, whilst your kind of audience, I guess, is entrepreneurs, I truly genuinely believe, and I know you do as well, that like anyone can benefit from this work. And I've got mothers, you know, stay-at-home mums that follow me. I've got all, you know, people that are currently still in jobs, business owners. And I got out of these classes and I was like, literally everyone needs to do this. It would profoundly change their life. So tell us a little bit like about who you are. Like, who is Keala Kanae? What's your story? What's the before you got into this work? Like where did you start?
Yeah. First, I just want to mention that there is a lot of what you just shared in your introduction. There's a lot to unpack there about like all the various success clues that are in just that story alone, you know? So I'm glad you're sharing that with your audience. Hi, I'm Keala Kanae. I born and raised in Hawaii, very humble beginnings. I mean, both of my parents, you know, very much working class. I grew up right down the street from public housing, low income housing, you know. So in other words, you know, supplemented by the government for, you know, folks that are struggling financially. You know, I get out of high school, going into college. I decided I was going to start I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was like, we should start a business together. And so I thought, oh, yeah, like that would be the secret. That would be the answer. I should just start a business. That's how you become not broke, right? Which I had been my whole life. And then for the next 12 years, I fail miserably as an entrepreneur. Embarrassing, costly, soul-crushing failures to the point that my friends and family members are making fun of me. And probably about maybe 9 or so years into that, initially, I think like most people do, I thought, well, if I just find the right product or the right comp plan or the right company or the right mentor or the right thing or the right opportunity, like the answer to my problems is out there somewhere, is what I thought, right? Eventually, by being around successful people, I kind of figure out like, oh no, maybe it's not out there. It must be like in here. So I'm going to read the books and, you know, go to the seminars and like, you know, maybe get the coaching and be around like people that are smarter than me and all these things. And things shifted a bit, but you know, a couple years after that, I'm still working for minimum wage, living in my mom's spare bedroom. I'm a barista basically in a coffee shop. I have a 500 credit score, like, and you know, I have a college degree and whatnot. And this is not for lack of trying either. Like I had started, I've been hustling for years. About 10 years into that journey, I took a class very similar to the Genesis class that you just took. And there is this life-altering, cataclysmic shift internally where I'm like, oh my God, my whole life is going to be different from here. And, you know, life just took on a whole new trajectory. You fast forward a couple of years after that, I had found affiliate marketing. I went on over the course of the next 3-ish years, over 3 years, I made my first $1 million as an affiliate marketer. That just kind of naturally progressed into people wanting to learn how I was getting those results. Like, how was I on the top of, these various leaderboards, winning contests. So I started teaching people about advertisements and funnels and copywriting and email marketing and all these different things. And that turned into a coaching business. We scaled that coaching business from 0 to $1 million a month in 4 months. Took it to about $20 million, just shy of $20 million its first year. Did over $100 million, 140, probably close to $150 million now in overall sales and revenue over the last, so that was 2017, so 9 years now. Okay. And yeah, I guess the rest is kind of history, and now my life is dedicated to the classes that you just experienced, because I'm really on a mission to, I took that stuff that you've experienced recently and like it changed my life, and I want to spend the rest of my life helping those that are in pursuit of something greater get the same information, get the same breakthroughs so that they can create in their life whatever their dream is.
That's so powerful. I love that. And so you talk about a big thing of your work is becoming your authentic self. And I love that because with, who are we beyond the stories, the meanings, the triggers, all the stuff that's in the way, the masks, the personas, the who we think we should be, like all of that, like who actually are we? And you talk a lot about identity work, and something that you said yesterday that really resonated with me is like, how would you show up if you were being the 6-figure version of yourself or the 7-figure version of yourself? And that really shifted my life as well. And I teach this to my community because it's like each day you get to unlock a version of you that you've never met before. And you treat it like a game. You're like, who do I kind of get to unlock today, right? And bit by bit, you start to get to know who you are. And what I love about this work is it really does, like, I've done so much personal development work. When I say to my team, I'm like, you have to do Genesis because it's the cheapest and it's the best. And it gets to the core of what is actually going on, right? For me, like, I feel so much safer now. I feel like, I've got this incredible relationship with my husband. I'm able to be present with my children. I found it really hard to be present because the thing that was running my life for 37 years was I'm not safe. So what does that actually do to the nervous system? I'm walking around literally not feeling safe, like I'm on flight or fight. So this was able to cut through so much of that where I had an embodied shift. Like when you experience someone and then they go and do work and then you're like, you're different. Like people around me are like, you're different, because of this. So the terminology that you use to describe this is neuroscience. And this is where I'm chatting with people. I'm like, oh, it's neuroscience. And I'm trying to explain it in the way that I've experienced it. But like from a actual scientific standpoint, like what is neuroscience? What is this work? Obviously you do personal development, leadership that transforms whatever's there, which is amazing. But how do you actually explain what this is?
Yeah, a bit of a loaded question, but I mean, at the end of the day, neuroscience is quite literally just the science of how our brain works, right? And how our brain changes. So how we change the brain. And I think the world of personal development as a category, has been around for a long time. I mean, Tony Robbins, as an example, has been in the industry, 40 plus years, before him, there are, even earlier thinkers before him who are working on, human potential and unlocking our potential and these sorts of things. I think one of the advantages we have today is that now that we better understand the brain and how it works, we're able to approach it not just from a philosophical perspective, but also from a science perspective, like understanding specifically how do we change the brain. Let's unpack this just a little bit. In my community for the last several years, I've talked about the fact that, so one of our philosophies has been success is a marriage of skill set and mindset, which of course you'll understand because you're very successful. And I've never met somebody who is very successful who argued with that point, ever, right? People who are struggling broke, they have a shitty marriage, their relationships are falling apart, they hate who they see in the mirror every day. They're typically the only ones that go, I don't know if this mindset thing is that important. So success is the marriage of skill set and mindset. Why do I say that? Okay, well, imagine that you have all of the mindset work in the world. You have the confidence, the diligence, the fortitude, the follow through, the certainty, whatever. So you have a lot of the soft skills, the character skills. If you don't have a valuable skill that you bring to the marketplace, a real problem that you solve in the world, none of that's going to matter. You can light candles, sing kumbaya, meditate till all of your chakras align and your eyes turn blue, and you're still not going to get a check in the mail for that, right? So mindset without skill set is a fantasy. It's a fantasy. You're like daydreaming about your life being different, but it ain't different. Skill set, on the other hand, like let's say that you're one of the best in the world at what you do. You're very smart. You're very talented. You have a real problem that you solve in the world. But if you don't have the character skills, if you don't have the belief, the certainty, the clarity, the vision, the purpose, the drive, the ambition, the fortitude, the follow through, and all these things, well then you're going to typically, and I've been here, you wake up every day and you see other people with half your talent, half your skill, half your, ability, living a life that could be yours, and you're stuck wondering, why does it work for them but not for me? And that's a nightmare. So mindset without skill set is a fantasy. Skill set without mindset is a nightmare. But if you can combine the two, you unlock the dream. That's our philosophy around this. So let's contextualize then, what is mindset? Because we use that term a lot, right? It gets thrown around a lot. We're in the age of social media. Everything is mindset. So if everything's mindset, nothing's mindset. Does that make sense? So when we say mindset, what I mean is, well, what is the mind? It's our brain. It's how it works. It's how we think. Set means to be automatic. When you set a clock, you don't set the clock the next minute, and then the next minute after you set it and you forget it and it works, right? So in other words, mindset is about, in Inspirean, is about our automated way of thinking. Okay? So in other words, a different way to put that from a neuroscience perspective is it's the way that our brain is currently wired to operate and filter the world around us. So our brain is not a success-seeking, it's a survival mechanism, not a thrival mechanism. It is bent on, it is default wired for how do we make it, how do we survive every day? We have tens of thousands of years or more history of being, hunter-gatherer foragers as a species, and living in tribes to increase our odds of survival than we do, living in buildings and cooking meals and having agriculture. So our brain is wired and designed for a life that most of us don't live anymore as a species. And so when we understand that, we can begin to deduce then how our brain or how our mind is creating our reality. And a big portion of that, as you alluded to in what you shared, right, in your opening, is essentially you're saying, okay, well, you grew up with these beliefs. So what I can deduce from what you're saying is that something happened in life wherein you lost trust in men. So there was something that occurred, and the belief that you made up about yourself or the world around you is that men are useless, right? So our brain is going to then recreate, because it's a predictive mechanism. It's constantly trying to predict what the future is like, as a way of shortcutting our processing, making it easier for us to process and predict our future and survive. And if it's going to predict the future, it's using the past as information to help predict the future. So in other words, this is why for most people, their future looks a lot like their past, right? Most folks who are born in poverty die in poverty, born middle class die middle class, born rich die rich. Most people, as much as they resent or are frustrated with their upbringing or their parents, they can look in the mirror today and say that they have become a pretty similar reflection of those parents. We model off of the world around us. It doesn't matter. Most of us as parents have probably told our kids that you can be anything you want in the world, anything that you set your mind to. But the reality is we see them as they grow up become models of what they see us doing. So they don't care what we say. They watch what we do. We model. Our brains are designed to predict as a predictive mechanism for the future, and what it's going to use is the past as a tool to predict. We don't experience reality the way it is. We experience reality the way that we are. Oftentimes we hear that said, but I mean it quite literally. Like from a neuroscience perspective, we don't see the world the way that it is. So our eyes just take in light. Okay, so the way that we experience the world is our light is just processed through our eyes, through the back of our brain. The same brain, by the way, that's carrying all of our emotions, all of our history, all of our traumas, all of our triggers, all of our baggage. All of that is also the same brain that's unpacking the images and then projecting that back out through our eyes. So we see, as a human species, we might see, like, you might see a blue background here, you're wearing a brown dress, I'm wearing a denim jacket. Most of us as a species, because our brains are developed in much the same way, we're going to experience all of those things. And we see these colors and whatnot. The question in neuroscience is, well, what is reality? Like, what is reality? Because there are other species that don't see any of those things. They don't see those colors. They don't see quite the same textures, right? And so what does the world look like if our minds are not here to perceive it? And nobody knows. What we do know, though, is that there's a distinct difference between reality and actuality, the way that we experience or interface with reality. So when we say that the mind is that, when we say that we don't see life the way that it is, we see life the way that we are, it's quite literally, from a neuroscience perspective, a fact. So as an example, in your share, you're looking for evidence over and over again for 30 plus years that men are useless, men are useless, men are useless, men are useless. So regardless of how they show up, you're finding evidence to see them as useless, to be right about the belief that you created, a long time ago, that probably helped you survive something in early childhood, but it now has become useless when you need men. Not that you need men, but that it would be beneficial for you to be able to work more efficiently with men to build your business.
Yes.
Right? So that same belief that once helped you survive something, get through something, explain something, no longer serves you in the future that you're trying to create, but you keep creating a future that looks like your past. And that's as best as possible, without going too far down the science rabbit hole. That's what we're talking about, is how do we create it in our Genesis class, which you've experienced. There's a set of experiences. We're taking people through this, no lectures, no boring, right? I mean, you're not like sitting there just taking a bunch of boring notes, listening to some guy talk to you the whole time. So you can fill up a notebook and put it on your shelf when you go home and do nothing with it. Instead of, it's a series of experiences designed to help you change the way that your brain filters reality.
Wow, that is so powerful. And it's so spot on. Like, I always say to my team since, 9 years ago, I'm like, your external environment is a direct reflection of your inner world. So I've seen, this, and specifically since Genesis, it's like, even coming here to this leadership event, like, I've been carrying all these stories and meanings my whole life for 37 years. And I come here and there's like a third of the group were men. And usually I'd probably be like, useless, 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 right? Like, and that's probably what my experience would be. But it's not them that needs to change. It's like, I needed to shift whatever that story is and that meaning. And so we came here and I was like, I just had the most beautiful interactions with all these men. And I was like, wow, like, every man here is just like, I just had so much love. And I'm like, it's shifted. These things that have been running the show, like, how many people I speak to that like just have these things that just run the show. And it's like, far out. Like, imagine if we could just peel all of that back and you just get to be your full authentic self without all of that. So it is such powerful work. It is just absolutely incredible. And obviously I've told you a little bit about my journey of my results, afterwards, but what have you seen, like, because this affects every area of life, but what have you seen from the students that have gone through it? I mean, even just like, I put up something on Instagram when I was on my way here and I sent it to Keala because I was like, you got to check this out. It was literally like 100 and something comments of people being like, it changed my life. Everyone's going to do this. It changed my life. Like, just so much. And he was like, oh man, like, thanks for sharing that. Like, it just must be so cool for you to see all this, because I know you have so many testimonials. But what are you seeing as a result of people's lives? What's changing that you're seeing from them going through these classes?
Well, I think the short answer to your question is, our life changes when we change, right? Life doesn't change because we want it to change. Life doesn't change because we set a new goal. Life changes when we change. perfect example is the story you share in the beginning in your in your introduction. Okay, let's unpack that really, if you don't mind unpacking that. Would you agree that did you have big goals, big ambitions prior to that call that took you to Vancouver? Okay. Would you agree that when you got pregnant, that when you realized that you're going to be responsible for another life in the world, that maybe that shifted
Yes.
your level of commitment
Yes.
to that outcome?
Mhm.
So in other words, as we share in some of our advanced curriculum, your values changed, right? So we get in life what we value because we're constantly exchanging value, right? Our time, our energy, our money. So you had a values shift. You also shared that you treated it like a game. You'll notice that people that are very successful in whatever they do, for them, it's a game, right? Like I have talked to doctors who, and this might sound weird, but like to them, it's a game. They love playing the game. Like they want to get better at the game. And their game is being a doctor. Not that they treat patients like a game necessarily, right? But that they want to, it's a game and they want to be great at it, right? You see books like Winning the Game by Tony Robbins. I believe it was Winning the Game. Most of the successful people that I know, their business is a game. In other words, their work is their play, right? Their work is their play. James Michner said, the master in the art of living knows no difference between their mind and their body, their work and their play. They can hardly tell which is which. I'm kind of butchering the quote just a little bit, but essentially, when you say we treated it like a game so we could find a solution, you switched from it being work to making it in some way, shape, or form fun. Okay. You also were driving to the airport with no evidence whatsoever that you were going to be able to get on an aircraft. You were willing it into existence, right? So if we were to look at how you were showing up in that window of time, and if we went back maybe 3 months prior, would you agree that you were different in that window of time than you would have been 3 months prior?
Yes.
Right. Because things changed in your life, you began changing. When we change, our life changes. I think so. Many of us have noted, we can look back on our life and we can see these various, we can see times in our life where we shifted, we changed, and our life changed as a result. So we can all sit around and wait for something to happen that changes us. Like you got pregnant and that changed you, right? We can wait for something to happen that changes us, or we can go in pursuit of that change. So when people come to the class, you ask, what are some of the results we see? Well, we see people, I've seen people, the people that reintroduced us, one was not too long, I met him, I started working with him maybe shortly after he was working in a butcher shop for like 14 or 15 bucks an hour. The other one was a compulsive self-sabotage, super talented, could quickly go out and get results, could also quickly destroy those results. Those two have combined forces. Their organization's probably approaching $1 billion in sales right now. I've not done nearly $1 billion, so I've seen that. I've seen like what you're talking about, where somebody walks out of the class and their marriage changes almost instantaneously, right? How many people does it take to change a relationship? One. It might take two to make it work, but it takes one to make it change, right? And in your example, you're not even sure what changed. You changed, and then the relationship changed. And to be fair, we've seen marriages reignited and refueled. We've seen, because I don't sell people some bullshit fantasy that life's going to be rainbows and unicorns after doing our class. Instead, we're not going to sell you some bullshit idea that life's going to get, that there's going to be, it's going to be always positive, never negative. Instead, I'm going to say that life is going to be challenging up until the moment that you die. We don't ask for life to get better or get easier. We just get better. And when we get better, life feels a bit easier. We've seen marriages recultivated. We've seen couples, come to the conclusion that, that we are different people now. We should probably go our separate ways. And by using some of the tools in our class, they're not weaponizing their children against one another. They're not hating each other as they dismantle that marriage. So it might go either way. 2 weeks ago, I was in Spain at a conference speaking. The first night of the conference, I'm at dinner with some friends, and there's a girl sitting across from me. Her name's Christina. She's from Norway. She's sitting across from me. She's done all our classes, and she just happens to be at this conference, so we're reconnecting, we're chatting. The woman next to me, Victoria, asks her, what did you get out of the classes? And she says, my whole life is different. Like there's nothing I can look at in my life that's not different. But something that I noticed that's really interesting is like, I went home and I'm different and I'm showing up differently and I'm like more committed in my life and whatnot. But my husband has lost, I think it was like 40 or 50 pounds. He's excited about life. He's reading books. He's listening to podcasts. He's like ambitious. He's alive. He's not done these classes. I don't know if he ever wants to do these classes, but just by me going home different, he's become different. And so we'll see people whose like their health changes, right? We've seen lots and lots and lots of folks. This is probably one of the most common things we hear is like, they'll do one or a couple of our classes and they're like, I got more out of this than I did after a decade of therapy. So therapists aren't necessarily a big fan of what we do because they keep losing customers to us, but so I say all that to say, what we see consistently is the areas that matter most to someone are the areas of their life that change. That's not always the area of life that brought them through the front door, right? And I think that that's powerful because it means like what matters most is what changes. And sometimes we don't know what matters most, because we're so caught up in the rhythm of life. As an example, you came to the class wanting to make sure Cal's not full of shit. Before I tell my whole community to do this, I gotta make sure this guy's not full of shit.
Yeah.
And then you walk out like, holy moly, like, I didn't know that I need to get that out of this, right? So so for your audience that's watching right now, what they're most seeking that might bring them to the class might not be the same thing that they walk out with, but it's likely that they walk out with so much more than what brought them through the front door. And as a safety mechanism, I mean, we offer a double your money back guarantee, which I don't know anybody else that's got the guts to offer a double your money back guarantee. That literally means you're either blown away in 3 days and you see how you got way more than the value that you paid, or we pay you back double if you don't feel that way. And I don't think that most people would have the guts, at least in the industry that I've seen, have the guts to stand behind their product or their craft to the degree that we have the certainty of knowing that like what we do works.
Totally. I mean, I thought it was batshit crazy that you offer that. I was like, why? Why would you? But I'm like, well, that's certainty, right? Like when you know that your work is that powerful, and like you're going to do that because you're like, well, I fully back it. And you've got so many testimonials around it. So I love that you do that because I'm like, well, you can't not win, right? Like they have this guarantee. You can't lose here at all. The worst is going to happen is nothing. Like there's
the worst that's going to happen is you walk away with twice your money.
Exactly. Like I think that's a pretty epic deal. Is there anything else that you would like? Obviously, I'm going to drop the link below in the show notes. Is there anything else that you would want to share around this work?
2 things come to mind. One is, I think this is to give some context around our work. At Inspirean, we believe that every human being has something remarkable to offer the world. This is our core belief. It is the thing that drives the company. Without going down the rabbit hole of how I arrived at our mission, vision, values. I shared some of that in your class recently. We believe that every human being has something remarkable to offer the world. Leadership is the key to unlocking it. Leadership is the key to unlocking it. Meaning until we take leadership in our life, we do not have the agency, the sovereignty, the ability to capitalize on our remarkability. Most of us are living a life based on who we think that we should be, need to be, have to be, supposed to be in order to be worthy, loved, successful, enlightened, or what have you. And so most of us are going to spend the entirety of our lives chasing who we think we're supposed to be at the price of who we were born to be. And until we have leadership, we don't unlock the remarkability that each of us is innately, comes into the world with. Leadership, then, to define that, the way that we define it at Inspirean is this. Everyone has a calling. Leaders have the courage to answer. Leaders have the courage to answer. It has not been easy for me to build a business, any of my businesses. I'm sure it has not been easy for you to build what you've created, right? You have to find the courage to do it. And I don't care if that's a mom who wants to spend, Rose Kennedy devoted her life to being a great mother. She wanted to raise a family of world leaders. This is her quote. And whether you agree or disagree with the Kennedy family and their politics, that's what she built. She built a family of world leaders. And, as we're filming this right now, one of them is in office playing a role in America today. And again, aside from whether or not you agree with their policies, that's not the point. It's that a woman made a commitment to have the courage to know that her contribution to the world was going to be being a mom. And we so often live in a world wherein it's not enough to just be a mom. You have to work like you don't mom, and then mom like you don't work. Having the courage to answer the call is about having the courage to be 100% authentically you on your mission, following your purpose. So that's who we are. That's what we do. And I think, and the last thing I want to mention is just, how grateful that I am to get to work with people of your caliber. When you were introducing me, there's a moment in the introduction where I realized, like, wow, I was really touched by the fact that there's a time in my life when I dreamed of having your results, right? Like, I just dreamed, like the story that you're sharing, and I just dreamed of making $1 million. Like when you said you made $1 million in 11 months, right? I'm like, what the fuck? It took me 3 years to do the first million, like, how did she do that? And there was a time when I aspired to be you, and now to be invited by someone like you to share my message with the world it's these moments, from time to time, I'm sure you get it too, where like you see how far you've come, and that what was once a dream is now your reality. And there's no paycheck that I've ever gotten that was as meaningful for me as those moments, and as seeing those moments unfold for others. So thank you for inviting me to share this with your audience.
I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful for you and for being here. And I just love your heart so much. Like, Keala could be doing anything, honestly. Like, he's like a freaky genius, like the way that his brain works. It's so funny. We've been chatting about, he's like, he's like, you don't even have funnels. Like, how did you even make $1 million in 11 months? He's like, that's just wild. And so I'm learning so much from him, right? Like, he could do so many things when it comes to business and ads and funnels. Like, he's a genius in business. But the fact that like you're doing something so meaningful, like he came to, when we were, a specific day in the Exorcist leadership event, and you were like, this is just as meaningful for you watching this unfold for everyone as it is for everyone. And I'm like, wow, it's just so cool, right? That you have the resources to do whatever, it is, but you've chosen to do something so meaningful that impacts so many people's lives. Like, literally, it's like before Christ and after Christ. It's like before Genesis and Exodus and after Genesis and Exodus.
Not that I'm Christ. That's not what she's saying. Just to
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just like, people talk about like before Christ, after Christ. But it's like, to have so many people. Like, I haven't met anyone that like hasn't had a profound shift in their life from doing this work. And it just must be so meaningful for you. Like, and I can see it in your heart and like your vulnerability and how you share. And I think that's, something we see in each other is like our vulnerability. Like, to see you over that week just share what you shared and the depth that you went to and the authenticity and the vulnerability. It's like a lot of people don't share that stuff. And, in our first take of this, he was like, well, the fact you shared about your husband, and you, like, a lot of people don't share that. And I think that as a leader, it's like, yeah, it's just really, it's beautiful when you can feel someone's like heart and how meaningful their life's work is to them.
Yeah.
And how much of a genuine impact you're actually creating in the world. So thank you. So grateful. So epic. All right. Well,
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Let's wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining this episode. I'm going to put the link below, and I'm just so like, please, if you go through Genesis, like, share with me in the Instagram message, in the DMs, like, that you've done it, and what you got out of it and how it shifted your life, because I'm so like, everyone that's messaging me, I'm like, oh, like, tell me your story. Like, I want to hear everyone's like Genesis and Exodus story. So I'm so excited for you guys that are, I think if you're following my account anyway, you're into growth and becoming the best version of yourself. So yeah, I highly recommend dive in. It is, as we said, there's nothing to lose apart from like double your money back. So it's only a win-win situation. But I'm really excited for you guys to jump in and get to experience this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you.